let's go move on to like understanding the planets.
The planets. Wow, that's you're picking all these enormous topics that like we could spend like 5 hours talking about one thing. I'll try and just do it very basically. So what you've got is you've got the seven ancient planets, so they're the all observable. We could all go out, and every night we can see the sun and the moon if they're in the right place. And the other, as far as Saturn, was the most distant planet that can be seen with the naked eye. So we don't use the three Trans-Saturnians, Pluto, Neptune. They're not considered in the system. And they saw each planet as a member of a council, a king's council. So the sun is a king, the moon is the queen, Mercury, closest planet to the sun, he's the prince. So then there was the two court physicians, mediators. So Jupiter represents like the law, looking after the royal wealth, that kind of thing. And then Venus was another type of advisor, but this is an advisor that's much more like magical, kind of into, rather than being imagine it as a like a judge or a rather than like a judge or a lawmaker, but they're making laws more for themselves rather than for the good of the country. Whereas Jupiter's more about making
Oh,
laws that are
okay.
good for everybody. So one's kind
Mm,
of like trying to do things the right way, but Venus
mm.
is kind of like more about, well, I'm trying to do it the right
Loopholes.
way, but it's
Yeah,
also about me. So
yeah.
it's a bit a self-indulgent kind of
A
minister.
bit cunning,
Yeah, a
like
bit more
bit
cunning, yeah,
silly. Yeah.
but very very well spoken, very not very friendly, very sort of interactive, and you feel very polite, and so on the
Okay.
surface they both look the same. They're both very good and
Right.
very good teachers. Just their motives are slightly different. They're great. They're both great
Interesting.
instructors, but they teach something a little bit different. And then Mars was the armies, the militant part of the court. He was always wanting to fight, go to war, kill everybody else before they kill you. And then, and then we've done Jupiter, and then last was Saturn. So Saturn was the like the you could say the servants, but the people that move behind the scenes that keep everything functioning. So they were like performing all the menial tasks to keep the court running. So what you've got there is they've given you the kind of the correct distancing of those planets from the sun. So sun is the center. Mercury goes very close to the sun. Then you've got the moon. Obviously, moon orbits Earth, not the sun. But from our perspective, the
Mm,
the moon is part of the entourage of planets.
mm.
Then you've got so Venus and Mercury were between us and the sun. Then you've got the Earth is not considered. Then you've got Mars. Then you've got Jupiter, and then finally you've got Saturn. So those were the sort of planets as they are observable from the Earth to give you the distances. Saturn's the furthest away from the planet, Sun, so he always moves the slowest. Mercury
Mm.
was the closest to the Sun, so he's always the fastest. And from those qualities, they kind of built up an idea of what all these planets were about, what their temperaments were, how they kind of interacted, what they ruled over, and they began to make up charts when you were born or at important events, and they would see where all these were in the sky relative to the stars. So they would plot all the stars onto a map, then you would just show where these planets were relative to those stars. And you could draw up a horoscope, a birth horoscope, and the idea was at the time of birth, wherever the planets were relative to the stars, they would give you certain qualities. So if the sun was in a particular, like sun was in Leo, the sign of the king, one will be born a king. So now
Mm.
we can't all be kings, but it would mean if there was a king and he had the sun in Leo and I also had the sun in Leo, I can't be the king, but I might act like I'm a king. I
Hmm.
might be the king of my own backyard. Do you know what I mean? It's the same thing, isn't it? So that's the idea behind it. It's very simple. It's like when we draw a chart, we're looking at certain things. We're looking at where are the planets, what stars were they next to when you were born, and then where were they relative to the east. So we draw a line to the eastern direction and we divide by the compass. And so now
Mm.
we've got planets in the north, planets in the south, planets in the east, planets in the west. And directions come into it, stars come into it, planets, and then we essentially make a map. And that map is to show when you were born, when you first separated from the mother, when the umbilicus is cut, and you take your first breath or whatever. Well, it's different traditions for different societies. Some say when the umbilical was cord, the first breath is the other. But when you came out into the world, the invisible influences of these planets would be impressed upon you, and that would be the qualities that you would carry. And
Mm.
Ayurvedically, we would say, they even to some degree determine dosha.
Mm.
What's going to be the primary thing. If you've got Mars and Sun in a primary position, the person might be quite pitta, might be quite fiery. They would have prominent fiery planets. If they airy planets like Saturn or Mercury, well, Mercury's kind of mixed, but we see it a bit more airy because it moves so fast in the sky. Speed is
Oh, okay.
associated with air, so
Yeah.
air and Mercury and Saturn would be more airy. And if it's more watery, more like the moon or Venus, even well, we say Kapha, so Jupiter would be like Kapha as well, would be like bigger. So all those planets would give more bulk. We didn't
Mm.
even mention there are two extra planets. I didn't mention them because they're a bit confusing to describe, but they're called the nodes, and they're the points where the sun and the moon they're like eclipse points. So they don't always cause eclipses, but the points are there and they're moving. So they take those 2 points which are opposite each other and they call those planets. So that's Rahu and Ketu. So technically we have nine. We have nine planets we use in astrology, but we can only see seven of them. The
Mm.
two nodes are invisible; they're just points. And from we can construct a zodiac, construct a horoscope, and then that tells us a little bit about the individual. And again, like the palmistry, you could use that to try and predict the future. You could use that to just elect a time to perform a ritual. You can ask a question in the moment and look at that exact moment and try and determine an answer to your question. That's called prajna. So we ask a question, we draw a chart up for that moment, and we look where everything is, and it gives us our answer. If
Mm.
we have a good ascendant, like the first house where we start the chart, if sun's in its own sign and it's well placed, probably the answer is yes,
Mm.
because we've got such a good starting point. It's like that. Or Maherta, where we elect. So we're going to say, right, I'm going to make a medicine for this patient. When's the best time to do it? So we look at the chart or we calculate
Oh.
where the planets will be
Mm.
in the next month, in the next year. And from those calculations, remember this is highly mathematical as well. So you've got to be good
Yeah.
at maths
Yeah.
to do this. That's why we have
Yeah.
computers now. We would calculate an auspicious time to make that remedy. So if I was making a silver remedy,
Yeah.
something with a silver, I would look
Mm.
to see when the moon has to be very well placed because moon rules silver. So I ought to make
Wow.
sure the moon is well placed. And that's a very, very, that's like such a basic, that's a very basic,
It's like,
yeah.
yeah.
But that's how we use it. So that's what we're looking at. We can look at a horoscope when the person was born. We
Yeah.
can ask a question. The patient comes in and asks a question, well, what's wrong with me?
Mm.
Well, what's the problem? That's a prajna. You're being asked a question, or you're making a remedy and you're thinking, I want this to be an extra potent type of remedy. When's the best time for me to make it? And then we would do a Maherta. We would elect a time in the future, say one
Mm.
month from now. Very difficult to do Mahertas because the sky's always changing. So you're only going to get second best. You'll never get the best time, but you'll
Mm.
get a time that's better than not.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's how
Wow.
we use it. And then so most of the stuff that people think when they think astrology, we're thinking natal, birth time. You've given a
Yeah.
birth time, and we look at your chart, and that's supposed to be like your what you've been bequeathed. What do you get in this life?
Mm.
But there are many other different types of ways that it can be used. You don't have to use that.
Yeah. Wow. That was a lot of information. And actually, to summarize it all, it's like all these
Impossible.
different ways of understanding. Pardon?
It's kind of impossible to. Yeah, it's probably. I would just the takeaway really. I would just say, just look at what you're interested in, what interests
Mm.
you. You don't have to know all this stuff, and it's probably better you don't spend too much time. Maybe I've spent too much time looking at different things, but
No.
pick what's interesting for you and what
Yeah.
works for you, and then focus on it and get good at using it. but they're
Yeah.
all
And
good.
I'll put your different books and resources and different like your website, YouTube channel, so that people, if they're interested in any of these and want to learn more and like what you teach, then they could, see for themselves. And yeah,
Best thing I say
it'll
is the
be
Substack. Go and look at the Substack
yeah.
because I'm always
Okay.
posting videos on there. And
Yeah.
the books, I'll send you the links. You can go and buy them from Aeon if people are interested. The
Yeah.
Iridology one, I'm just going to do a class in about 3 weeks, 4 weeks time. I'm doing a 5 week course in the introductory
Oh,
for behavioral.
oh, fantastic. Yeah. Okay. We'll let the people know.
Yep.
And yeah, thank you so much, Andrew, and hope to speak again and be in touch. And yeah,
Thank you, Shiva. I appreciate your time. And thanks for giving me a chance to come and speak on your show.
thank you. You're welcome.